the little sub menu.
All right, so we're back in recording. So now we're going to go to the audience, and if you have questions, please raise your hand. Automatically would be best because it's hard to see everybody individually right now. Scanning the whole group. Okay, John, would you like to start?
Yeah, sure, I'll start. So yeah, just generally, you talk about a lot of incumbent power structures, and I was just curious your thoughts on centralization versus decentralization and where we might have room to increase decentralization. I'm not sure what you know about, finance and those type of movements, the decentralized movements. Just your thoughts on how much a problem centralization is.
Yeah, economies of scale work for Wall Street and the financialization of the economy, but they also help to accelerate wealth upwards. Decentralization can work at every level. And I think that it's really important to empower people at a local level to make decisions on their own account. So, I thank you.
Yeah. Okay, Steve Behrman.
Yeah, hi. Thank you so much, Dennis, for this book and for the inspiration for relocalization. I think that's really, really important. You're in the right place at the right time. And of course, I love the title of the book, the natural pun in there. 3 years ago, you were running for governor of Ohio. And at the time, you thought that it was possible to bring together the progressives and the populists, that the working class people, the erstwhile Trump supporters, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm wondering, in this campaign, politics has changed so much, and you've got this identity and that identity, et cetera, et cetera. Is that something that you see as a possibility this time around, or is it just a bridge too far?
No, I mean, the hyperpartisanship and the polarization which we are experiencing in our society is not who we really are. Labels do not describe us. I found when I traveled the country and met some of you who are on this call in 2003, 2004, and then later again in 07 and 08, I discovered an underlying unity in America. There are many things that unite us, and we have to have the capacity to be able to identify those things that unite us, evoke them, call them forward, set them in motion, find a way to build upon our commonalities. That can be done at all levels. There's a sense in which the partisanship which we see on raunchy display is just a form of craven marketing of people attempting to strengthen their own narrow, billeted, closed-minded positions in order to gain political funds, try to build a constituency off an ever-eroding base. It's madness. And this is why we may in fact be reaching the terminus of the value of partisan politics in a two-party system. So do I think that we can take a new direction? Oh yeah, absolutely. Will I do that in Cleveland? You can bet on that. If I happen to be elected again, my approach is not going to be a system about being a Democrat, a Republican, liberal, conservative, any of that. Forget about that. What are we trying to achieve? How can we build a bigger vision for a community?
Dennis, we just got your iPhone and there you are. Okay, our connections. I want to follow up on that before I go to David Corton, because what do you think about the extreme populist movement, if you call it populist? It's really bordering fascism, or is fascism?
There's always been that element in politics that may have a a philosophical bent towards fascism that may have a racist bent. But you focus on the economics and where you can unite people across political lines. When William Jennings Bryan ran for president in 1896, and interestingly enough, if you read the history of that, he didn't go into the Democratic Convention as a candidate. He was a journalist covering it. But he gave a speech, which became known as the Cross of Gold speech, which is really about a monetary standard. And based on that, he was able to gain almost instantly a national constituency. At the same time, money was organized to block him. That money came from Cleveland, Ohio. The corporations in Cleveland organized the campaign against William Jennings Bryan and put up William McKinley and told McKinley, you don't even have to leave your front porch. We're going to buy this election. And they did. The populist forces continued to gain momentum so that by the time McKinley was unfortunately removed from office through assassination and Teddy Roosevelt took over, he was able to use his position to break up the monopolies. They called him the Great Trust Buster. These kind of things run in cycles in America. And I think we're probably on the threshold of another breaking up of these monopolies and hearkening to the kind of decentralization that the previous questioner raised. Mm-hmm. So while David Korten, I see you there, wrote a very important book about corporations and their influence. The influence of the people can be felt through organization and through information. And hopefully this book is going to be helpful in that regard.
Yes, I'm sure. So I want to go to David Korten, and the book that Dennis was referring to is On Corporations Run the World. And I think David has some very important books on this topic as well. So David, you're next.
Yeah, Dennis, it's thrilling to reconnect again after all these years, and so exciting to see what you're doing. I think we all come at this with a united sense of the deep human transformation that is required at this point in time. And I'd like to hear you just summarize. I mean, we've got the global level, the national level, and the local level. You've been at the forefront of politics on both the national and the local level. But how do you think about the connection between these three levels in terms of the overall global vision of what we're trying to achieve? And then in terms of what you're doing, the connection between the national and the global and the local politics. And is there some sort of local alliance that you're part of to make these things locally happen on a large scale? That's kind of a big question. Put the pieces together.
First of all, David, thank you for being on this call. I have long appreciated and admired your work. And everyone who, on this call is familiar that long before people are paying attention to the impact of corporate control over communications, for example, over the internet, David Korten has been tracking these things and writing about them. And I've always appreciated the chance we have to spend time together, particularly when I came out to Washington State and spent some time on the island with you.
Yeah,
so
great.
Thank you, and very grateful. To answer your question on a couple of different levels. First of all, this book, the Division of Light and Power, and I'm holding it up not to hawk it, but as a reference point, this book it talks about the fight against a single effort at privatization, very involved fight, pitch battle, corporate conspiracy, espionage, corporate sabotage, mob-directed conspiracy plots, bank co-conspirators, it's all there. As I was writing this book, I did some research, And I was aware of the privatization that's been going on wildly internationally. Thousands of examples of privatization of assets being stripped from communities and states and nations. And so this, this becomes an ever more important issue, because just because somebody gives up a utility doesn't mean they can't get it back. That's number one. Number two, and if somebody's descending upon a community, as these privatizers will, and they're certainly going to do it after the American Rescue Plan money runs out, this book provides a dramatic yet textbook approach how to fight back. So already this is an international movement. And already I'm hearing from people in different countries, let alone different states, who are inspired by the notion that you can win if you know how to fight back. I think that what we're all finding in this time is the urgency of return to working with communities and to empowering people at a neighborhood level, in every pursuit. So, thank you for showing the way to people, at least gaining information and understanding about the economic forces that are trying to capsize people's own individual lives. And at the same time, the ball is in play all over the world, all over our country. And the tempo is going to quicken as American Rescue Plan money runs out and cities are saying, whoa, where do I get money to do this or that? Oh, let's sell our electric system, our water system, our sewer system, waste collection. We'll pedal that off. Privatization, ipso facto, means people will have higher taxes and pay more for what they had previously, for lower taxes and paying less.
Yes, same with the airwaves also, which supposedly the people own, but we don't get any of that. We pay for the cable television to use our airwaves.
Well, Georgia, I mean, you hit on something. In 1934, when the Federal Communication Act was passed, the words from that act that the electronic communications shall be in the public interest, convenience, and necessity. Well, that's all been forgotten. That's right. Like back from that's in a dinosaur age, right? Except that principle of the public having an inherent right needs to be understood. And unfortunately, except for those of us who have been, working in these fields, the public doesn't have awareness. And so what I've tried to do with this book is to help keep alive that flame of knowledge and awareness to create to illuminate the public about the potential to be able to gain control of institutions and to or regain control.
Okay, I think Lisa or Herman, you're next.
Hi, I had a question. So Herman and I have been giving a lot of presentations and talks on climate, and every time we do one, we try to see what's the latest information that's coming out. And every week or every month, it's worse and it's scarier. It's actually a terrifying kind of work to do, although we're trying to help people find solutions. So it's, as bad as we can imagine, that's how bad it seems that it is. And so it made me interested in what you think about the role of kind of light and power, because how we're using our energy sources and where we get our light and our power for everything, that it's such a huge transformational time to switch from fossil fuels into electricity and into clean forms of electricity. And I was thinking even at city levels, it's important, or in neighborhood levels, it's important, because the car companies are switching to create, some of like GM and some of the other car companies want to switch within a decade to only electric vehicles. So where are we going to plug them in? Do we have the power for them? How can we get homes and buildings electrified? So that just that whole electricity issue is so much of a huge infrastructure issue to a solution we desperately need. So I was wondering about thoughts you might have about that.
Well, decentralization again is is the answer. I mean, I don't think it'll be long before people are able to harness wind and solar to be able to power their own homes efficiently. And of course, you know, we know the competing interests will try to frustrate that. But I think, you know, for each community to have its own ability to be able to meet its own needs with respect to energy is critical. And and to make that the energy environmentally sound. I mean, here in Ohio, First Energy, which is these now the company that includes the Cleveland Electric Illuminating Company, tried to buy the Ohio legislature so they could get a bailout on their failed nuclear power plants. And they also, in the transaction, blocked a green energy initiative. And so that's still going on around the country, an effort to try to stick us with these old forms of energy. And there is that dynamic. However, marketplace are also coming forward to present people with newer and better means of powering their homes and their vehicles, for that matter. So, you know, we're in a sea change right now. And anything that can enhance power at a local level, to me, seems to be the direction we want to go. And now keep in mind, these utility monopolies years ago enhanced their business model by claiming that economies of scale, the bigger you are, the more service you can provide for people and the cheaper. But once that was transited into a financialization model, where they were compelled to charge more in order to, you know, build their stock and pay higher dividends, they couldn't really sell the idea of economies of scale. And it was also one of the arguments for nuclear power. So, you know, it's kind of a roundabout answer to, I think that both the marketplace and the and advancing technology is moving apace to create new forms. And that's where we're at now. 10 years from now, we won't even recognize today. And I think it's going to be in a better place, more environmentally sensitive, more community, locally owned, more decentralized.
Right. Okay, we're going to go to Fran Corton next. Fran?
Dennis, a great pleasure to see you again. So just a couple of points. One is I'm part of a group that is trying to pressure our utility to get off of fossil fuels. And it's interesting that we have a reasonably sympathetic utilities commission that regulates this private company. And I've been impressed with how little power they have. So your point that there's no accountability unless you own it is really, really valid. And I am going to recommend your book to this group, which is mostly engineers, very smart people, and tend to not think kind of beyond the let's try to use the current structures. Anyway, my other question for you is what else in Cleveland do you want to move beyond privatization?
Well, you know, I would just say stay in touch with KUCINICH.com and you'll see the campaign unfold. I'm sorry, but you know, it's like I don't want this discussion to be about as much about a mayor's race as I do want to talk about the book. No offense here, but I'm certainly open to protecting every area of potential public ownership and of recovering some areas that we may have lost over the years. Let me just stop there, because if I go on, I don't want to create the newspaper headlines for the plain dealer tomorrow and scare the hell out of people. So we'll just leave it at that. Now, I want you to tell your engineer friends that it was that if they look early in the book, it was an engineer who helped provide me with the guidance I needed to come forward with the facts to protect our municipal electric system. His name was Warren Hinchy. He was the commissioner of Muni Light. And it was his engineering background that explained to me how a system should be run, why it wasn't being run right, why the Cleveland Electric Illuminating Company and how they were interfering in the workings of our own Cleveland municipal electric system. So you let those engineers know that if they want to put a group of them together on a phone call, I'm happy to talk to the engineers.
Okay, thanks, Dennis. Now, Lori Gallion, you have a
Yes.
question?
Hi, Mayor, and I am a former mayor of the city of Sonoma, so mayor to mayor. Okay. I found your speech that Georgia had sent to us prior to this session here from 2002 to be incredibly well written and certainly inspiring. It has met the test of time. You talk about citizen diplomats of the world. You talk about citizen activists that can make the world merge, and how you acquire capacity for active citizenship, and how does it begin, envision, and sustain? And given that this is 2021, almost 20 years since you have written that speech, do you feel that we have come anywhere near it? Do you feel that we have the possibility or still have the capacity to reach this? Because we have many issues that are not just in localities where we have to be nurturing what we can have governance over, but basically also lead others to follow.
I think the answer, why did I call it the division of light and power? Well, was it only about an electric system? No. It's about our inner light. It's about our inner power. It's about the power that any one of us has to be able to change the world, change our community. That's an innate human quality, which is timeless. So whether I, gave the speech years ago or gave it yesterday, I was at the time I was tapping into something that was way beyond myself. It came from where I was at, who I was with. Georgia, you certainly had something to do with that. Sandra Hay had something to do with that. It's like all of us are the product of everybody we've ever met, and I certainly have benefited. And some of the people on this call, I don't know if Herman Guerra's on there, but just there's some people if you're there with, you get inspired, and so we inspire each other, and so there's always a chance to recapture what Wordsworth called in his Ode on Animation of Immortality, the visionary gleam. It need not be lost to cynicism or to disappointment. This is about an endless quest to be able to seek a newer world. In the words of Tennyson, he says, "Come, my friends, 'tis not too late to seek a newer world." It's never too late. and it's just that we have to be careful not getting pulled into this magnetic pull of despair, this false consciousness of helplessness which surrounds us. And again, it's about our inner light. It's about our inner power. It's about what each of us can do. So do I think that there's more of a chance today? There's just as much of a chance. It's the only thing that, when we help expand human consciousness and people come to understand what they can do, they take it from there. And hopefully this book is going to, in some small way, be that little ripple of hope. I just would conclude with this, that answer with this thought, that because I've always been inspired by these words by Senator Robert Kennedy in 1968 when he was running for president. He was asked the question, well, he was campaigning, I think in East LA, And somebody said to him, you know, what do you know? You're some rich guy from Massachusetts, New York, and how do you know about our situation? And how you can tell me we're living in a poor place? How do we make a difference? And he said that each time a man or woman stands up for an ideal, acts to improve the lot of others, or strikes out against injustice, he or she sends forth a tiny ripple of hope. And crossing each other from a million different centers of energy and daring, those ripples can create a current, which can sweep down the mightiest walls of oppression and resistance. I mean, I have found that to be true. And again, it's about inner light and inner power as much as it's about these monolithic structures in our society, which tend to insult and defy our humanity by their sheer breadth and reach into our everyday lives. But you know, much like Lewis Carroll wrote in Alice in Wonderland, where Alice is seeing the minions of the queen march on her, represented by these massive cards, you know, and they're going to destroy her. And she sweeps out her hand and says, "Hey, who cares for you? You're nothing but a pack of cards." She realized her own humanity. And that realization of the power of her humanity dispelled this threatening image that if she had experienced fear, would not have been able to come to her full size, as Lewis Carroll describes.
Very good example, Dennis. I'm going to go to Katie Byrne. Katie, do you have a question?
Thank you. It's an honor to be here, Dennis. Thank you so much.
Sure.
So just a line from the Guardian Weekly, the British Guardian. Authoritarianism is a new normal. According to the latest Economist survey, only 8.4% of the world's population live in a fully functioning democracy, while more than a third live under the authoritarian rule, and it's getting worse. So I love that. I think you're a master of hope and you're a visionary, one of them. And thank you so much. I agree with everything you've said. My question is, but I still get despairing, and I think helplessness is collective at this moment. Can you say that about, can you mention I don't know, even though I'm a psychotherapist, that personal power is enough. And I wonder if you're thinking about any specific things that we can do, such as town hall meetings that may create a collective powerfulness. And my particular passion at the moment is also getting tools for the kids in school for communication. But my question is, what specifics can we do in your mind at this moment?
Well, in a way, we have to teach courage. Now, Emerson, in one of his essays, said, it's the best use of hope to teach a fatal courage. Now, courage doesn't have to be fatal. And what I have found is that the least bit of courage can open a door that otherwise you would think would never happen. And in some ways, we have to teach people how to be courageous again, teach people how to step forward, teach people how to gain their voice. And there's like a calisthenics to it. We have to exercise that. And I would, and of course the root of courage, it comes from the French word "cœur," heart. Okay. And in Agni Yoga, which is a spiritual discipline which I've studied for many years, they speak of the heart as being multi-sensate, that the heart can see all, it knows all, it can hear all. And I think we can actually teach people how to contact the power of their own hearts, which are connected not just to heart and a desire, but to heart in fulfillment and vivifying our lives itself. And I do believe that that these are things that people can learn, and it's just a matter of sharing it one generation to the next. And again, not getting pulled into fear, which is a real human experience.
Yeah.
And I mean, all of us experience it, but to teach how to deal with it, to remember when I was a child growing up, I saw this Walt Disney show where this character sang, "Whenever I feel afraid, I hold my head erect and whistle a happy tune so no one will suspect I'm afraid." And in a way, we have to teach how we can look past our fears and inspire and get some inspiration again from within. Yeah, I do think we haven't even begun to tap our human potential. It's almost like we're waiting to rediscover the fire within.
Yeah, I think we are. I'm going to go to Steve again, if there isn't anyone else who
Trudy.
hasn't spoken yet.
Trudy has her. She doesn't.
Oh,
She's trying to raise her
okay,
hand. She
Trudy,
doesn't.
let's go to you. Trudy? where
She's
are
trying
you?
to unmute, I think.
Years ago, I don't know how many years, 10 years ago, I remember getting a communication that Elizabeth was very interested in agricultural industrial hemp, which from an economic standpoint and an environmental standpoint would really solve a whole lot of the woes that we have. So I was wondering now where that stands on your radar at these times.
Yeah, I'll tell you. I mean, Elizabeth at this very moment is negotiating with PBS for a new series called Wild Foods, which has an agroecological bent. And she also has helped to form a new company, which is aimed at restoring desertified land of real interest to places like Arizona and the Southwest. And can you hear me?
Yeah, sorry, we
Yes.
got to mute Trudy. Can you mute again real quick? It's echoing on your end, Trudy. So once Trudy's muted, it should be solved. There we go. We're good now.
Okay.
Okay. So I think, Georgia, it would probably be good to have Elizabeth for one of your sessions, because she has been lecturing all over the world about agroecology, and certainly hemp was one of those issues that came up. And, I had the good fortune of accompanying her on a tour, which included lecturing in China, in France, in England, around the world. She was on the European Commission, which met with China and talked about, the hope for advancements in agriculture. So, yeah, she'd be good for you to talk to, because she is so knowledgeable on this. And you could probably, through talking to her, find out, where the future's headed on agroecology.
That's a very good suggestion. And for those of you who don't know, Elizabeth is Dennis's wife. So Cheryl, you're next. Cheryl?
There, okay, yes. Hi, Dennis. We've watched in these last few years such a growing segment of the American population believing things such as the presidential election was stolen. There's such a misrepresentation of truth, and so many people believing as facts things that are not accurate. And media is spreading a great deal of that and fostering it. So I would really like to get your thoughts about that phenomenon, which we're observing, and where you see it going and how you're seeing it being utilized in a constructive way.
Good question.
Well, the reality that we all experience is socially constructed and culturally affirmed. We're all subject to cross currents of information, and our politics can create the preconditions for people to distrust what they're being told by one candidate of one party or another. It's just, we're in a time where government has taken us into wars based on lies, where it's let the wealth of the country accelerate upwards, where it's come together with trade agreements that have wrecked industries and good paying jobs in the United States. So why should people trust one political party as opposed to another political party? I mean, that's kind of one of the places where it begins. And the good news is, there's a proliferation of media that people can rely on for information. But the bad news is that it's also quite able to be distorted. So there's a competition for attention and ideas. We have to be ready to state our case and say what we think, but also to be compassionate towards those who may have a dramatically different view of the world. And some of those people may be inside our own household. They may be our husbands, our wives, our children. Hey, look, that has happened. So, this is a tough period of hyperpartisanship and polarization and people being spun around and not knowing what to believe or who to believe. We have to be gentle with each other and always come up and present what we know and then let people make their own decisions. The toughest thing that I find, and the thing that you should never do, is never try to, we can try to convince people what we think, but we can never impose what we think on another person. That's where it becomes really dangerous.
I think one of the things that we've all noticed so much with the hyperpolarization is the anger and the actual meanness and bullying that has come out of a lot of the right wing, and how that can be dealt with is quite challenging.
Well, Georgia, I would just say, forget right, left, forget liberal, conservative, forget Democrat, Republican. Those are all notions that are phantasms. Yes, they have some impact now and then, but we've got to get beyond those labels, because they don't really describe us. We organize around them for sure, but I can fully understand how people can have one position where they look at a political party and they say, what a bunch of liars. Or they look at another political party and they go, these people aren't representing me in any way.
Actually, that wasn't what I meant. I meant the anger, the meanness, that has come out of us. Well, actually, it's a lot of the Trump supporters who are very bullying, very mean. The Southern Poverty Law Center did a survey showing how much more bullying there were in the schools after Trump was elected. So it's that kind of way of dealing with other people that disagree with them.
I have found that every president, one way or another, reflects some underlying trend in our society.
Mm-hmm.
If a president's a bully, well, he's got followers who will imitate him or who preceded him. It's not a question who he is. The question is, who are we?
Mm-hmm.
And I have found people in my own family who used to vote Democrat all the time, and all of a sudden they saw Trump come along, and they voted for him not because they bought everything he said, but because they were sick of a political system that didn't deliver on their practical aspirations. So it's much more complicated. And I think the viciousness that comes out and I'm not excusing it, mind you, but it can be a symptom of the frustration that people feel that they don't have any control over anything. So they use their words to condemn somebody. I mean, when you look at the social media, they call it social media, but sometimes it's very antisocial. The cancel culture, the phenomenon of shutting down any kind of diversity of opinion, that's a problem. You know, it's a real problem. I'm not any more interested in left-wing domination of politics and right-wing domination of politics. America has to achieve some kind of a balance in order to move forward. We're not there. Where things are profoundly out of balance. You know, it's hearkening back to the days of Yeats's Second Coming. You know, turning and turning in the widening gyre, the falcon cannot hear the falconer. All things fall apart. The center cannot hold. And we have to rebuild the center and strengthen the center so that this dynamic so that we can achieve a dynamic equilibrium again from the disequilibrium, which is affecting not only our politics but our public discourse. And to educate again and educate about the power of words. You know, again, going back to Ibsen, you know, a word can be like a needle sticking. You know, this whole idea about derogatory speech, being very careful about disparaging another person. That's a part of a principle in a more orthodox type Judaism called lashon hara. Don't even think about derogatory speech, because once you do that, we open the door to new possibilities, so you can have more compassion for people. And if there's anything we need right now, oh my God, it is compassion. Otherwise, we get into that dialectic of conflict. We're just eating each other up. Doesn't go anywhere.
Right.
Except,
we're back to spirit and stardust from the speech, and just understanding how we're all part of everyone else and everything else. I wanted to know, I know we've got some other questions, but we're really reaching our time limit. And I want to know if there's something that you want to talk about specifically before we finish.
Yeah, this book is really the story about a young person getting involved in politics. I was age 23 when I was elected to Cleveland City Council, but I had my eyes open, you know, starry-eyed, yes, but also paying attention to what's going on around me. And I think that has always made a difference for me, to be aware of actually what's happening in my immediate environment. And, you know, when I see something that's resulting in a theft of what belongs to the people, I would speak to it, and did speak to it. And then as a 31-year-old elected mayor of Cleveland, the youngest mayor of any big city, you know, I brought with me the hope at that time of trying to effect a transformation. But the collision with these corporate forces that David has written so eloquently about, the collision of the corporate forces in Cleveland, which at that time was the number 3 corporate capital in America, behind behind New York and Chicago. So, you know, my experience was not only one of the exercise of power on behalf of the people coming into contest with these corporate interests, but it was also a spiritual test. Because the book is about spiritual realism as much. Can one go into a public forum and hold on to one's beliefs, to one's spiritual values, to one's ethical posts, to the polar stars that guide our light and our paths forward? One must. It is because you know, I mean, I happen to believe, and I suppose this had some part in the decisions I made, in that idea, what profit a man if he gained the whole world and loses or her soul? You know, it's like you've got to stand for something in life. And could I have made a deal otherwise and advanced myself? Oh, absolutely. But you know, you know, in the end, yeah, there's nothing I wanted from these corporations except to stay the hell out of Cleveland's business.
Which is exactly where you're going, while you're going back to being running for mayor of Cleveland again, which I think is really heartening in a way to come back to the local and to understand the importance of the local. I want to thank you so much for being with us today, Dennis. And what we're going to do now, I want to tell everyone that the recording of this program will be sent to all of you tonight. The link will be sent to you so you can watch it again if you want, or if you came in late, you can see the rest of the program. So
And Georgia, please let everyone know where they can get the book, okay?
Absolutely. We put that in the chat box. I think John has put that in a few times and he was going to put it in again at the end.
Thanks, John. George, if I could just say this, that,
Sure.
you know, I recognize that on this call, that there are individuals, yourself included, who have been really important to my life and to my own intellectual and spiritual growth. And I just want to acknowledge that collectively and give, you know, heartfelt hugs to everybody individually on this call. I hope that at some point in the not too distant, that we can meet again for another discussion, because I find being just to be in your presence, albeit electronically, just to be in your presence, I'm ever more inspired. So thank you for giving me this chance to spend some time with you.
Well, this has been wonderful. I feel the same way. And it was wonderful to be back in close contact. And we do hope to do something in person as well in the next year and a half. I'm going to stop the recording now.